Hey you. The Wii feels like it should be the light gun game machine, and it is. Although to us, there hasn't been much great game that came from the Wii. As far as we had tried, there's one okay game out of five that we had tried. And so that means not counting port, we're talking games that were made for the Wii. And we'll be talking about one of those other four today. To get to the point, Dead Space Extraction feels more like watching a meh horror movie with rail shooter breaks. This means long spans of time just not playing, which you can guess that for us, that doesn't make for a great rail shooter at all. Because if to us a rail shooter means a tight experience, chapters that go from 27 minutes to 29 minutes for about 27 to 46 enemies within, that's less than one enemy per minute on chapter 1. This game can't give me a star rating and then expect me to go back and play a whole half hour of gameplay for less than that. Now, they don't always give you one enemy at a time, but most of the time they do. The pacing gets better later on, but you just cannot tell me a rail shooter gets better later. That's crazy. Why isn't it good now? Why is this game just a few minutes of good in 6 hours of mid? Even things that you'd think would be good, like the dismemberment mechanic or the stasis, it just makes you do the same thing of putting the nearest enemy in stasis, cutting off the legs off of everyone, and then trying to clean up because you want to make sure that everyone takes the longest amount of time possible to get to you, to make sure you have the time to kill them all. So you end up with a strategy that's very similar all the time and relies on making the game takes the longest amount of time possible. Which this ties back to the one thing I want to talk about with this game. Something we couldn't do with the better rail shooter we had played is stalling. Actively slowing down the game to a crawl or otherwise make it completely stop. This one is just the second worst case of this due to stasis and enemy recoiling to every little shot. As to why this is bad, if we're trying to make a tight game, whether the player used this strategy intentionally or not, stalling or halting the game makes the game slower, and having the game be slower makes the game more boring. We don't want to have to ask the player to play the right way. We have to make the player play the right way. And so, make sure that things like this don't end up in the game. In our search to understand light gun games, it feels like there's a pretty dramatic cutoff between the arcade light gun games and the console ones. The latter, in trying to make a longer experience, more feature-filled and approachable to more people, ends up making a stretch out game that can't put its best foot forward in the first 4 hours and still ends short of being thrilling or challenging. And while that's it for now, we'll probably want to explore this thought more in other reviews. I'll see you there.